Welcome to the final session for Lockdown Live. Thank you so much for joining us so far. My name's Tom Bamford-Blake. I'm the Programme Coordinator for Sussex Rights, and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome the people who've joined us for the chat today. So today we're going to be rounding off our discussion by talking about post-lockdown futures, thinking about what we've learned in our discussions so far and where we go next, what we can take on board moving forward, and what kind of thoughts and indeed hopes we have for the future. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what people have to say. And so without further ado, I want to go to our first question, which is, what do you feel you've learned so far during the pandemic, and in particular during our Lockdown Live discussions? So what have you learned during the pandemic and during our Lockdown Live discussions? And I'd like to turn to Derek to offer our first ideas on that point.
Thank you so much, Tom, for this opportunity. First of all, hi to everyone who is joining us right now. So my name is Derek Chamau. I'm a student in Kenya, studying public relations at a university called Daystar University. So first of all, I think the lockdown series has been a game changer. The lockdown series has been a very, very big game changer to so many people who have been facing so many issues, especially during COVID-19, and being given such a platform where you get to learn and hear from young people like me and themselves. It gives them an opportunity to really get to learn a lot. For me, one thing that I really picked out was on mental health. I believe that mental health needs more than sunlight. It needs more than those unshamed conversation. Basically, what I picked out is that we really need to keep on creating awareness. Social media and mental health, it can go either the positive way or the negative way. It brings all about depression, anxiety using social media. At the same time, it is positive because people receive information through social media. So now the whole point is to create a balance. How do we make all the negative become a positive? I believe that's one of the biggest things I picked out throughout the whole sessions that we've been having. Another aspect is in the point of misinformation and disinformation of COVID-19 messages out there. I believe that this has been happening, and having a platform where people can discuss and bring out some of their experiences in misinformation and disinformation, it puts us at a place where we as the young people need to ask ourselves, what is it we are consuming? How much are we consuming? You see, in terms of COVID-19 information, which are the right authorities to pass this information? Which for me, I find like the Ministry of Health, the government, they're the ones at the right place who can give us the correct information when it comes to passing this information. I believe after the session, one of my friends was literally listening to the session, and there's something that he really told me that really made sense to me. The whole discussion under the lockdown series was about, for me, what I picked was about a young person like me to sit down and always have a vision when you're doing anything. And lack of vision, this is literally what he said. Lack of vision is like a black man winking at a black lady in a dark room and expecting a reaction. So we need to have a vision for you to be able and sit down and say, okay, I'm aware that mental health is happening. I'm aware that this information is happening. Why don't I put myself in such situations where I can be able to learn more and be able to downskill the same information to those who didn't have the privilege in being in such a platform. Yeah, that's what I think I got to learn mostly. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank you so much for those really important points, which really bring together a lot of the things we've been talking about. I'd like to go to Swedi next, who's going to build on some of these ideas.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Swedi Veshmagema. I'm with Sussex Rights. And this whole lockdown series has been really, really interesting, has been enlightening, has been informative. It's one of the best things I think that I've been involved in for some time. And I'm just glad that we've been able to connect with people from various parts of the world. That's in the UK, in Nigeria here, and in Kenya. We had some people from oh my God, okay. I can't remember all the countries, but in terms of, I'm talking of the participants, but in terms of reach, I know that we reached far more countries than we had participants from. And from my interactions, I was able to realize that most of the things that I thought were happening in one place are actually identical to the things happening in other places. So it's not like we're in a world that is, where, how do I put it? Let me just say the world has come, I got to realize that the world is really one global village as it is. It's no longer a thing of the developed countries having challenges that are peculiar to them, developing nations. COVID-19, in a way, has unified the world in a way that several things have not done. In particular, in all the sessions, I think the two that spoke to me the most were the first one, which was on the learning process, where we are discussing how people are improvising to learn and other things of the sort, and that of mental health. It's usually very easy for us to think that whatever we are facing are things that are peculiar to us, but through all these conversations, I've come to see that there's so much that needs to be discussed. We need more platforms where we'll be able to share the various things that are happening. And it's only through our discussions that we can find solutions that would make the world a far better place.
I am Peter Mungi Kata, currently pursuing a bachelor degree in sociology and gender and developmental studies. My point of view, what I have learned is that change is inevitable, and change will keep on coming and keep on changing stuff. So in order to overcome or to cope up with this change, we need to come up with strategies or some good ecosystems to enable us to fit in this sphere of life. The second point is that I learned that the problems that are affecting the world are the same problems that are affecting us youths in Kenya. So it has really impacted on us, whereby we have come up with some critical ideas whereby we can come up with some solution to some of the existing problems and some of the evolved problems. Thank you, guys.
So I have been involved from the start, and I've just finished at Sussex Uni doing English, and now I'm hoping to go and do a master's in gender study. And this whole lockdown life has kind of pushed me towards a master's, because I was kind of done with learning, and COVID kind of puts you into a bit of a rut of not really doing much. But this has just opened a whole new avenue for me, and we've interviewed some brilliant people. Yesterday we interviewed Sherry Hope Culver, who is the director for Center of Media Literacy in America, in a university in America, and that was fascinating. And she was talking a lot about gender and how young girls are kind of taught who to play with and how to behave from Nickelodeon and TV shows and things. So that was super interesting. I just had the privilege of speaking to some really interesting people, interviewers, and also everyone on this panel has just been amazing. And it's so lovely that everyone has respected each other's opinions, and I feel like it's created such a sense of hope for young people, which I feel like was really dwindling like a couple of months ago. So that's really nice. And I was speaking to Esperance the other day, and we were both saying that we've had like similar conversations with our mums about having nothing really to do, and my mum was like, yes you are, you're doing Lockdown Live all the time, so that's what you have to do. And also it's quite nice just to have this break and to take time to think about what we want to do next. And I think Lockdown Live's generated some really great ideas for everyone about what they might want to do next, and hopeful ideas, especially with our conversation with JJ Tabula, who's an economist, yesterday. And he was saying, like, find your skill and sell yourself and go for it. So that's, I think, what we're all going to do. So it's been, yeah, an absolute privilege.
Thank you so much. I'm Chantal Esperance from the Youth Cafe Kenya. I've been part of this program from day one, from scratch, and it's been really awesome hearing from, you know, people my age, from people all over the globe. It's just come to my realization that everyone actually faces the same challenges, and the things I think I as an African go through seem to actually relate to what people in the USA and England actually do go through. And it's actually really interesting. It's actually really amazing when you get to hear from your fellows, when they try to give their experiences and what they've gone through. Makes you feel like, well, I was complaining, but I'm actually at a better place than what you actually think you are. The two topics that stood out for me were mental health and misinformation, disinformation. Mental health stood out because we go through things, but we tend to think we are okay, and we just have to have this shell on us that, you know, you have to survive through life. But one thing that stood out for me that Derek mentioned is that even I'm trying to look for a word, but even the person who's supposed to give you guidance, the counselor, also does need counseling in their own perspective. That thing really stood out to me. And also another thing was the fact that we all need to have a vision. We all need to plan, especially in terms of misinformation and disinformation. We don't need to be as quick to just jump into posting and matters social media. The best thing to do is get a strategy, lay your way, do your fact checking, and avoid misinforming or disinforming people. Thank you.
So what are your hopes for the future politically, economically, socially, educationally, environmentally?
So, like Katie, I'm at Sussex Uni. I've just finished my second year. So the lockdown and, you know, the act of then sitting at home with nothing to do but your university work kind of makes you think, okay, so how can we move forward after this? How much downtime means to people and how valuable it is to yourself. Again, this was discussed somewhat in the Mental Health Lockdown Live episode from 2 weeks ago. And so the investment and the value that you can put on your downtime and your hobbies and your self-care, I think it would be a really positive development from this frankly traumatic event, that it can now be built into daily life and is a more considered part of daily life from now on. So I think the two words that best sum up a post-COVID future to me is compassion and resilience. So the compassion to, you know, accept everyone's experiences and the way that, you know, you deal with things and everything. Compassion is so important now because we've all gone through an experience that, although it's not been identical for everyone, it's been a similar experience, and it's like a universal, in a way, experience in COVID. So this is a really good opportunity to introduce some compassion, but also it is also a responsibility to be resilient too. So how can you develop your resilience in the face of compassion, and how that can be applied to the workplace, to educational spaces, everything like, you know, that, just sort of anything you can imagine. Outwardly expressing compassion and inwardly being resilient is probably the best way to move forward after this experience.
Again, I think after COVID-19, the most important thing for us, especially if you can say about the general world as a perspective, is mostly everyone will ask themselves, how do you get your footing after this whole pandemic, starting all the way from mentally, emotionally, physically? How do you get your footing out there? Maybe you started a business 2 months before COVID-19, it went down, then now you're trying to get your footing after COVID-19. That question itself of how you get your footing, that will literally define the future of COVID-19, because you as a person, if you're not able to understand how you will get up in the morning the next day after your president has said that, okay, we've given out all the vaccines, now COVID-19 is over. If you're not able to figure out how you will wake up the next day and what is the first thing you will do, there is no future after COVID-19. That's what I believe, because the future after COVID-19 starts with each and every person, where you as a person acknowledge that this incident has happened. Am I moving forward positively in terms of my mental state? Am I moving forward positively in terms of my physical state? Am I used to waking up at 11 a.m. in the morning? Now I'm supposed to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning so that I can get to work early. If you cannot adapt to the new normal as a person, it will be so hard for you to be able to be part of the conversation of what is the future of COVID-19. You get, personally, I believe that it all begins with us. The future of COVID-19 begins with us, where we are able to understand that this has happened, and proactivity, and like what the previous panelist has talked about, there needs to be resilience, whereby we come together and take all these tasks on board, and let's not leave anything to rest, because if you personally cannot get that footing, there is no future after COVID-19. Thank you, Tom.
Maybe to add to what Derek has said, we need to be quite flexible and quite compatible to everything that is happening. Like in the economic sector, we can try and transform ourselves, or try to rebrand ourselves to make ourselves much better than the rest of the people, in order to be a competitive factor in the economic sector. On the second aspect of that question is that we need to take heart. It happens, it's quite depressing at times, whereby maybe you had started a business and maybe the business comes to collapse, but you need to get up on your feet and keep the journey going. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hi, guys. I'm really excited to be in this last and final session. Mine would really just delve into the economy and what has been going on. I think it's clear that for entrepreneurs, it has been a really, really tough year. And moving forward, I believe COVID has sort of made everybody bulletproof in terms of, if you survive this without liquidation, you're on the right track as a business person. I would want to give this to the next person so that I plug in my charge and then come back and then continue.
I think what I would just like to add is the COVID-19, what has happened is we've learned a lot within this period, but even as some places are easing restrictions and things like that, it's like we're going back to what we had before. So my hope is that we take whatever lessons we've learned within this period and apply them moving forward. We shouldn't forget all these lessons. There are new things. The world is now using technology a lot more. I think there's some measure of inclusivity for even people who ordinarily might not have had certain changes. But if we revert back to our old ways, we might still get to that point where we'll get into bigger trouble. So it's best for us to take every single thing we've learned and ensure that we don't go back to our old ways, or rather ensure that we take the best of the past, merge it with what we have now, so that we can have a better future.
Yeah, I think just to build on what Soli just said, I think that's such a good point about picking and choosing the good parts of the past and taking them forward, because I think the whole situation has exposed cracks in the system where nurses are underpaid, especially the cracks in the NHS, and not that it's the NHS's fault, it's mainly the government's in my opinion, but that's for another conversation. But it's definitely exposed a lot of disparity in how many ethnic minorities have died from COVID as opposed to white people, how nurses haven't been paid as much, how builders were being forced, like not being furloughed for a long time. It's really kind of exposed these cracks. And I feel like hopefully once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And hopefully everyone kind of keeps going with this motivation, where there's loads of campaigns on social media right now to do with equality. And that would be really great if those keep going. And instead of things going back to normal, everyone else just kind of goes back to normal, that everyone remembers that these cracks are still there and that they need to be filled. So that's my kind of hope for probably like the political, but as well the economics side of the future.
Thank you very much. Now, moving forward, I wanted to say that this COVID has really redefined business. Someone was saying that it is coming to redefine the idea that we already had of capitalism and its place in a world that is vulnerable to pandemics. And moving forward, we need to look into the fact that it's been a learning curve. It's not yet over. Their cases are surging up, and we have second waves coming up. But I believe that as humanity, we are getting through it, because at the end of the day, they are important lessons for everybody. People who are politicians, and for them especially, they need to rethink this international agreements on the environment, because if COVID has really slowed down the world, and yet we are not meeting the mitigations put in place for the carbon footprint, it means we have to redefine the entire ecosystem of how business is done, and the sort of sources of energy that we can alternative energy that we can look into and that we can harness. And the fact that as human beings, we need to also agree that we need to redefine ourselves. We need to evolve and accept that there is not going to be a good life if we live behind a warmer planet. And a warmer planet means if we can take care of that, if we're not going to live behind a warmer planet, we have 10 years to turn this around. And in 10 years' time, if we are not able to do that, then we might, SANS is very clear on how things are going to go. So the political class need to come together and not only formulate policies that are there in the constitution but are not really working, but formulate policies that are sustainable, policies that are going to help people rebuild after the pandemic, redefine a new way of how business should be done, redefine how we put caps into the types of energies used by various governments and various big corporations. We need to look into, is oil the only sustainable way through which countries can make money? Because moving forward, I believe if we're going to move to green energy, it's going to redefine so much, and that may be one thing that people are afraid of. Also, like for we the young guys, we need to also rethink about creating sustainable businesses. Sustainable businesses are going to bring forth a good setup that is going to ensure that at the end of the day, we create employment in a world which is vastly changing. We not only also do that, but also just make sure that we are taking care of the environment at the same time. And the burden is on our shoulders, because we are going to bequeath this earth to our future children, and if we are not able to give a good world to the future generations, I don't think there is going to be a sustainable aspect to live in. So we need to live for the future and make policies that are working for them. In terms of job hunting, in terms of even looking for employment in a post-COVID future, no one is really sure what it's going to look like. Countries have officially entered into recession, so there are going to be uncertain times in the coming decade. But I believe we've always pulled through, and what these conversations have done is that they've showed us that there is always a way out. We have had a very borderless series for the last 3 weeks, and I believe that sort of speaks into how we need to look at everything. We need to look at everything, as Kata said, that change is coming, and if we are not going to be the change, the world is going to change us, and in the process it's going to be ugly. And it would be beautiful if we agree that we are going to redefine learning, we are going to look into the systems that are already sort of not working. And now COVID has shown that learning, especially in a traditional sense, can be redefined. It can work for people across the globe without necessarily being together. So it's a pandemic, but it has come with so many lessons for everybody. And if we all just sit down, analyze the situation, and forge the way forward, I believe we're going to have a really beautiful ending at the end of the day. We've pulled through world wars, we've pulled through other pandemics in the last century. This is going to be something that we're going to get past. And I believe with creative and carefully curated foresight, we are going to make it to the other side.
Maybe to add on that bit of political aspect, I think decision making and choosing of leaders begins with us. There's this saying that charity begins at home, whereby we need to start by ourselves by choosing the right leaders and appointing them and giving them that mandate in order to deliver whatever we expect from them. So my first thought is that we should elect quite literate leaders and who have sound mind. The second point is that they should come up with strategies or policies in order to cope up with these evolving problems that come from time to time. Like the COVID-19 has really posed a challenge to the government, whereby the COVID-19 has affected a lot of spheres or aspects, like in the medical aspect. Like in a country like Kenya, they tend not to invest more resources on medical health. But COVID has come here, has forced these leaders or limited them from going from this country and seeking medical attention from maybe abroad. That will induce them in order to come up with better policies, come up with better resources, availing the appropriate criteria of appointing maybe medical personnel, and add to that. Thank you.
So I would just like to add on to what Anthony said about the environmental aspect. So probably before the COVID-19 issue, climate change was kind of one of the biggest issues going on in the world. And I think the COVID actually had its own kind of positive effect on the environment. I mean, with less cars on the roads, we had less carbon emissions, and if you check the news right now, some places you could hear about animals being spotted where they weren't spotted before. Like, for instance, back home in my country, in Nigeria, we heard of dolphins being spotted around the beaches, and they were previously not there because fishermen used to kill them and all that. But now you could see them, and you could hear of elephants, different animals being spotted and coming back to their original habitats just because people are indoors. So I feel like this is something we should carry on post-COVID, because I mean, before this happened, climate change was one of the biggest issues. And I mean, if we can see the positive effect staying at home has on it, it's something we should consider, and we should continue post-COVID. Thank you.
So I just want to add something small on what Peter said on investment locally. Most of the times you find that some situations lead us to actually look into ourselves. For example, as a country, we've always relied on, as he's mentioned, medical facilities from abroad or imports in terms of goods, food, and other services. But then now this is a situation that has made us actually have to invest into ourselves as countries or as nations, whereby our medical facilities are wanting. And you find that in some areas we don't even have enough health centers to actually accommodate the number of patients that are growing with COVID-19. And I think that is something that it's been a blessing for us, if you could say, because you find a situation whereby the policies, yes, have been a bit slow, but you find that corruption has also led to like factors whereby people didn't really want to invest. They'd rather have the money for themselves. They didn't really see the need for them to actually invest into healthcare, for them to invest into payments of salaries for the healthcare facilities or into agriculture for ourselves. So now you find a situation whereby you're relying on your own country to provide for everything that you need. So you look at it in case of now we rely on agricultural produce from our own countries. We rely on people from the rural areas to provide food for mostly the urban areas. And with the lockdown currently happening, so now that's like cargo kind of shipment and stuff. But you find that this, for me, has been a blessing in terms of economy, because now we are able to grow ourselves before being able to actually grow internationally. So this is something that I could say is a pro with the coming of the COVID-19 and the lockdown and the border issues coming on. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So, like the previous, the gentleman who spoke on policies, one thing COVID-19 has taught us is to be self-reliant, just like the previous lady was saying it. During COVID-19, we all look into our resources. We are not depending on any country outside. If I take my country, Ghana, for example, during COVID-19, we had young people inventing ventilators, and I saw so many hand sanitizer products from the young people in the market. We're able to make face masks from local print, etc. So I think it's a wake-up call for African government to bring up better policies that will ensure that we are self-reliant ourselves. Because if during COVID-19 we're able to survive, we're able to fall on our own resources, I think a proper policies to ensure that the young people are able to build on their capacities and what they can do, I think Africa will go forward. Thank you.
Our third question, which is going to be, what practical things are you doing or will you do to get us closer to this future that we're hoping for? And I think in a bigger sense, we might say, what do you think the practical policies that need to be put into effect are? And what do you think our role in this is as individuals? Who would like to jump in on that?
I guess I should just put in my bit. I think moving forward, the first thing is the government needs to, because usually it has to do with government. We've spoken about what the government need to do in terms of policy, but I think the major problem we've had in several countries is not just that the policies are not there, it's the fact that the governments are not committed to practicalizing those policies, taking actions on them. So I think this is a wake-up call to governments all around the world to be honest about the policies they have, also to look at the welfare and the well-being of the citizenry above just their political interests, because in most cases, it looks as if most of the governments are just working towards doing things that would better their own political adventures. So I think we all need to become less selfish, starting from the top, because a proverb here goes that when meat starts to get rotten, it starts to rot from the top. So if the leaders can do that, the followers would also follow. The followers would also do the same. But more than just that, I think what we also need to do as individuals, like I mentioned earlier, is to take the momentum that we've been able to build from this COVID period and see how we can fuse it into the life we are coming into. We do not need another pandemic or any other situation in the world to force us to become creative. What this pandemic has done to us is to open our eyes to see the fact that we can be so much more. So as much as we are doing new things, we need to also inspire other people. We all have spheres of influence. So the key question now is, how are we going to inspire the person beside us so that even if we cannot do as much as we can do, those other people can also do more? And that's where things like this lockdown series come into place. From here, we can build a mentorship scheme for even people who are around us. It can be people in your house, people in your neighborhood. You can also tell them about some of the things we've learned here, because once information is shared, we empower people. The key to every single thing in life is information. Without information, we can barely move forward. So these are things that we need to particularly take note of.
I hope I can come in now. So for me, I think what we can take from all this is the fact that we have to we've looked at things in a different way. Before, agriculture, in issues of the environment were things that we always set aside for other people to do, the activists, the students of environment. But now everyone is everything has come into a new light. We are becoming more involved in issues of, okay, what's happening in the national parks right now? What is happening with the bat issue coming up? I think we have been more invested in what's going on around us in terms of the environment. It's not just like going to work in the morning at 8 a.m. and coming back at 5 p.m., cooking dinner, and then going to sleep. We're more involved in what is happening in the international world. And I think that is one thing that has led to more information coming out and more people being really aware of what's happening in the surrounding. We have changed our mentality about issues of agriculture, where we thought that mostly we now need food more than ever. We now need our resources more than ever. And we've changed how we think about the people who used to work for them, the people who went to the farm every morning to actually get for us the food that we need. Now we are more involved. And in terms of policy, we have become more aggressive. Most countries didn't have a contingency plan for things like this when they arise. And now we are more engaged in how is the government changing policies? How is the government creating policies that actually help us to be able for us to move on from here in terms of economy, in terms of what's this thing called political issues? What are they doing? I think one thing that we've taken away from this is mostly our engagement as people in what the government is doing. We've not just left everything to the government, we're now more involved. And for me, I personally have become more, how do I put this? I am more aware of my surrounding. I have realized that I come from a point of privilege. I recently started a project on a book drive on how actually I can be able to take some books that I have in the house, because I am a hoarder of books, I can clearly say that, and how I'll be able to share it with people who actually don't have. Before I used to think it was like me keeping a library, but at some point I realized someone needs it more than I do. And it's given us that source of empathy for other people, and we realize what other people are going through because of COVID-19, because you hear cases of people having physical abuse, emotional distress, and such discussions that we're having currently have made us more aware of our surrounding. And I think that's our takeaway. We've become more united than we actually thought we would be before. So the unification of people, the involvement in the policies and actions that happen around us, that is our takeaway from this. And I think we've all grown as a human race, and we all want to do better, and we want to invent, and we want to build up on what we could actually do in case, I'm hoping not, a pandemic like this happens again. We are more prepared than before and less ignorant, if I could use. Yes, thank you.
I think what Lynn just said was amazing, and I don't really have a lot more to add, but I will add a tiny bit anyway. I think coming from a UK perspective, the kind of narrative of the vulnerable is actually quite helpful, because everyone's kind of huddled round to protect the vulnerable in our society, whether that be old people over 70 or 75, I think it was, and people with long-term health conditions. And that's something that very rarely happens, is that vulnerable people actually get a voice and actually get put to the forefront of society and get protected. And that's something that should happen all the time, not just when we're in a pandemic, which is like ridiculous that it's only kind of just surfaced now. But I think it's what you were saying about Lynn, about like you kind of have to, it's not, the government are often all talk, I think, in a lot of countries, and it's like, where are your receipts? What policies are you actually putting forward to the vulnerable? And you can say all these things about things like, we like cut for our NHS every Thursday night. Yeah, but what are you doing? Because actually you just cut nurses' pay last week, so it doesn't really correlate there. And I think it's, everyone is kind of like having this awakening of actually all these things that we are being told, where are the physical practices behind that? They're not there. And I think it's actually a really kind of like energizing experience, and like people I've been speaking to are very much kind of all questioning the government still, and questioning things that they're being told, which I think is a really great place to be, and acknowledging privilege on another level. For myself, I think I've really noticed how much excess I had, of how much, even ordering stuff from ASOS, why do I need to do that? I don't. So that's kind of stopped. Like, it's, I think, noticing the like core things that we all need to be doing, which is going for a daily walk, eating, supporting the vulnerable. And that should always be the core things, not just during a pandemic, but I think that's great. So yeah.
So I'm Amos from Ghana. In our case, we are trying to put up a project. We have started a project that's what we are piloting actually. The project is called Beat Ghana. So this project is in the way that it's addressing issues of malnutrition. And then in cases of where we have maternal and child death, we are trying to cut them down. It's just strategic. What we do is that for every mother who delivered at the hospital or under health care or in the, health facility, what we do is that we are going to give you 2 mango trees. Now, this tree will be planted on the land that you want. Now, reason being is that when we give you the 2 mango trees, we are going to add some funds to it. Before you finish with the 2 years period of taking care of your child, that mango tree would have started bearing fruits. What I mean is that all those people who lack taking fruits, basically, it's one of our challenges. They are going to automatically, start taking those fruits. And of course, some of those fruits are going to dash into the market. Now, when we are piloting, we realize people show interest. Reason being that all of them want to roll into the program. Okay, it is not competitive. Family A is saying that before the 2 years, my tree has to start bearing fruits. So it becomes something like a game. So with this, all of them are forced to attend hospital to deliver with what we call supervised delivery. They are all coming to deliver at the hospital. Now, taking the population of like the sector that we are piloting, it's every year they have over 2,000 live births, 2,000 births. We are looking at 3 years trend. So in 3 years, just imagine the number of births we are going to monitor, about 6,000. Now, if all these 6,000 children should deliver at the hospital, remember, we are coming to advise the mother, we are coming to educate the mothers, sensitize them on how to really go through so that any of them, we don't lose any of these mothers. So they have close monitoring clinically. Then after birth, the 2 years period that they have to be breastfeeding their children and even wean their children, we give them close monitoring. What we are doing is in this 3 years to come, we are coming to have over 12,000 mango seed and then fruit trees planted. At long last, you realize that we are trying to make, monitor vegetation. We are trying to monitor this kind of afforestation kind of stuff. So we're going to have more trees planted than they are destroying. So this is what we are doing. The piloting is in progress. And when you look at this, leveling this to the SDGs, it is attending to SDG 1, 3, 7, and 13. And in 3 years to come, it's a very big program. And that's what we are doing in Ghana today. So after COVID-19, we are going to fight big time to reach every mother. And we are starting from the rural village, communities. So as a matter of fact, I'm in the Guantanamo district, very remote area right now. And that's also yesterday I was even having, this kind of network.
So much, Amos, a really great example. Okay, I want to kind of move us into the final section of the chat now. And what I want to focus on now is, if you have one message for our audience, what would it be?
In my perspective, I'd delve into it in an environmental mindset. Everything during the COVID period has been really green and really awesome because of reduced manufacturing and whatnot, which is not really a good thing because the economy is going down. But definitely after COVID, there'll be a really huge revamp in terms of economy, in terms of manufacturing and processing industries. So my final word would be, don't be greedy, be green. It's a slogan used by University Environmental Club in Kenya. And I feel like it really strikes into your heart. Like, you wanna achieve your manufacturing need, that's okay. You wanna do your industrial activities, you wanna drive your car and whatever you do, but then don't be greedy, be green stands out for me. That in whatever you engage in, remember, be conscious of the environment, be conscious of the next person, be conscious of the effects you give towards the environment. Thank you.
I think my final remarks will come with just one quote. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. I believe that every young person in the world right now needs to invest time in knowledge. What I mean by invest time in knowledge, I mean by be the first to be part of the conversation, because being part of the conversation puts you at a place where you're creating awareness to people. Investing in knowledge is about what everyone has been talking about. When something is happening, you don't have, as much as maybe you might not have the resources to do something or to get involved one way or another. One platform that I believe everyone has is his or her voice. So just make sure your voice is there to be heard, so that being part of that conversation puts you at a place where that whatever you are talking about or whatever you're contributing can be able to be heard by that person who has enough resources to be able to have it implemented. And you know, when anyone hears about knowledge, they just think you sit down, start reading a lot of books. No. It's just a matter of spend 2 minutes, go to the internet, go to Google, look at what is going on. What is going on in a different part of the world? What is going on next to you? You know, like that's a form of knowledge where through that kind of information, through the facts that you've been able to see is happening, when you're contributing to the conversation, you're being part of the solution, because solution is everything. And the solution is the best interest that is coming from that investment, which is knowledge. Yes, thank you.
Me, my parting shot is, let's not go back. We have made so much progress. We have made so much change. We have done so much. We've talked about everything that is under the sun in terms of our countries, abroad, everything that is happening to us. We've been able to actually talk about it, find solutions, and be the change. And I hope we never go back to our area of just sitting down and just being. I hope that from here on, we're able to make the changes in terms of environmentally, socially, politically, any form of change that you felt right now that you needed to do because of the pandemic. I hope you carry the same, I hope we all carry the same spirit back into our daily lives when things go back to normal. I just want, like, the vulnerable have been raised right now, and I hope we have the same ideas, the same inventions, to be able to actually push it forward past COVID-19 and even into our future. Let us not be reluctant, and let us not be, because we've seen that we're able to do it. I mean, right now we're not able to have the meetups that we used to have, but here we are having conversations about it online. There is no limit to what we can do, and I hope we never limit ourselves again and reside to anything that is less than the ordinary. And I hope, that is my hope for everyone. Let us just never go back to where we were. Thank you.
Maybe my closing remarks are be a positive vibe to the rest of the world. And sharing is caring. That's what I can state. Thank you.
I think mine would basically be more along the lines of, we should let love live. We should learn to love ourselves better. We should love all the people around us. We should also love the earth. We should build on our habits of empathy, because if we put ourselves in the position of other people, we'll be able to care for them more. What the pandemic has taught us is that there's very little to life, and life can change in a second. So we should value every second we have, because who knows what the next second would bring.
I think that's exactly the point, is not going back. And everything we've spoken about today, we need to mobilize that, and we need to, speaking about it is great in this lockdown live session, but we need to speak to our uncles, our aunts, our neighbours, our friends, everyone we can, and we've all got the time. And I think we need to remember, maybe when we don't have the time in the future, if we all go back to full-time work, if we all go back to things, make the time, because it's so worthwhile. And a lot of the change that we've seen in the past, I don't know, 3-4 months have been because of social media campaigns or protests or writing to your MPs, writing to your politicians, and that has made a change. And that is something that we need to remember and be grateful that it's made a change, but also not stop. And even when things go back to normal, we still need to make the time to do that and to educate ourselves and others. And I think it's been lovely seeing that throughout this whole lockdown life. So thank you everyone for educating me, and also all educating each other. So
all right, so what I want to say, I have this message for young people. I work with young people. What I want to tell them is to get some tech some tech skills. If you are tech savvy, especially during this COVID-19 era, you tend to be more relevant. That's what I've realized. Taking my community, for example, my message for young people is to get tech education, get tech savvy, because the next word is going to be artificial intelligence, robotic, etc. And most African young people in rural areas where I work most often, they are not so they are not tech savvy. And I think going forward, as COVID-19 has taught us, if they get that kind of education, and if we also advocate for our government for better policies, I think when it's coming to education, no person should be left behind. Thank you very much.
Mine is to say that we need to stay positive because we don't know what the future holds for us, and that's all. At least be open-minded for whatever is coming ahead, and at least you'll not be surprised in the future.
All leaders must need to draw up plans and then simulations to help them institute a better global response system for possible pandemic after COVID-19. Saying this because COVID-19 has just clearly proven to us that we were not prepared. And by doing this, we need to set up research across the world into the infectious disease, then also hasten efforts towards equal access to healthcare in various countries. And then, if possible, we train and retrain healthcare personnel on dealing with some of those pandemics that we may come across again in the near future. We need to be over. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think we're bringing our final meeting to a close now. I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone watching, massive thank you to everyone who's been involved while we've been doing this. Thank you to everyone on the chat today and on all the previous chats. Thank you to everyone working behind the scenes to make this happen, whether that's promoting on social media, doing the minutes of the meetings, organizing people over email, making promotional materials, and all the bits that we don't always see on the chat. So we hope that you'll kind of stay in touch with what we're doing on social media, even after the end of these videos. And we obviously wish everyone the absolute best. Really hope you learned something from these chats. I know we did, I know I did. And best of luck to everyone. Thank you so much.